So every once in a while, I try to make sense of some random ass motor racing movie. Could be live action, could be animation, it could be anything. I don't care. I take on any of them. And I've gotten requests for a few things. From Days of Thunder, to Speed Racer, to Rush, which, to be honest, I don't know how I'd be able to review a movie like that. Instead, you could just watch this video that I made on the actual season the movie was based on, where I steal half the movie's footage anyway. But trust me, I see your requests. But what I could not, for the life of me, understand was why a decent amount of you were requesting for the movie Turbo. Like, why? Really? Why this movie? We could be watching some other classics, such as, I don't know, The Fast and the Family, or this Chinese rally movie called Pegasus. I mean, yeah, that thing was the biggest drug trip I've ever experienced, but there is substance in both those. Why watch a movie about a snail wanting to win the Indy 500? Why even? Well, like I said, this was requested by a few of you, and hey, supply and demand and all that good jazz. So I took heed of the request and I gave it a watch. And I gotta be honest, watching that thing, the light bulb did hit me. Ow. Yeah, there is a bit more to this flick than I initially thought. Was it good? Was it bad? Well, sit back and find out, yeah? Put your feet up, stay a while. Let's take a look at Turbo. So, as you may have already guessed, the plot is centered around a garden snail who lives within a sort of snail community who mock him to the hills over his somewhat unhealthy obsession over motor racing, which I kind of sympathize with. In particular, a category of racing that doesn't really command a lot of navigational nous.
How could anyone not see the appeal of watching a bunch of cars drive around in circles for hours on end? Left turn. Left turn. What do I do here? Oh no, wait a minute, left turn.
I mean, he's not totally wrong, but it is a bit of a labor point of view. It's like claiming that all baseball is swinging a stick around and waiting around a lot for something to actually happen. You know, there is a bit more to it than that. Namely, betting on your own games, steroids, and dying of syphilis. But back in his motor racing La La Land, Theo doesn't care. Nothing puts him off. Of course, he doesn't like the name Theo, instead fashioning himself a new name that demonstrates his stupefying love for motor racing, calling himself Turbo. Mr. Self-Important here, reckoning he can trudge through life living under a name that isn't his actual legal one. Like, get out of here. Who would ever do such a thing? But for now at least, he's stuck working at quote-unquote the plant. And that's fine. He's with his commune, he gets some decent grub, and he's pretty much safe from the elements, you know?
How's it going, Sally?
Morning, Jet.
Morning, Phil.
Oh, That's why you gotta tuck and roll, like everyone else does. Tuck and roll, that's how you stay alive. However much he wants to become that racing driver, the reality was, he was a snail. A freaking snail. His peers mock him over his obsession, and his brother Chet is equally embarrassed by this. He's completely flabbergasted by Turbo's antics, and implores that he settles for the everyday life of a garden snail, saying that
The sooner you accept the dull, miserable reality of your existence, the happier you'll be.
Wow, aren't you just a little ray of sunshine?
that has to be the best life advice of all time. No kidding. It kinda strikes a fear in you, if anything else. Worked for me, and of course, it worked on Turbo too. In a way, the advice doesn't just magically make him go faster, but he is still obsessive over the sport. Perhaps even more so, despite that pep talk, and still hangs on to the every word of his boyhood hero and 5-time Indy 500 winner, Guy Gagné, who, as you can see here, is almost insultingly French, even if he's French-Canadian. The reality still remained though. He was a snail. And after failing to save a tomato the following day, yeah, you heard that right, he's admonished by Chet for almost getting himself killed over his own belief that he had it in him to be fast. Delusioned, Turbo leaves his home in search of truth, hope, and reason. It's kinda hard to do that in Los Angeles, but hey, a snail gotta do what a snail gotta do. While sitting precariously upon a bridge, he's thrown off the overpass by an oncoming truck. He falls into the LA River and onto the set of what appears to be a Need for Speed Underground remaster. I mean, he's right into all of this. Perched there on the hood of a Camaro, leaning in, getting the aero advantage, whatever he's gotta do to win. Before being sucked into the supercharger, drowned in nitrous oxide, witchcraft happened, and woke up to some weird-ass superpowers. He's a little bamboozled, but if you woke up with headlights in your eyes, you'd be thrown off too. But as long as his new superpowers don't land him in any trouble, then it's all good. Oh crap, this kid. So see, this douchebag here with the $5 aviators likes to crush bugs for fun. If any of you is watching this can relate to this kid, y'all need Jesus. And sure enough, Turbo's new superpowers end up throwing him into view for young Maverick here, and yikes, we got a snuff movie. Or so you'd think. Well, I didn't see that coming. Nor did the rest of the snails. When Turbo's antics f***ed up their garden, they banished both he and his brother Chet, even though the poor guy legit didn't do anything wrong, and sent them both out into the great unknown. Banishment, away from everything you've ever known. At this point, you'd almost wish that that damn crow would swoop down and just end it all. Almost. Oh. Turbo hauls ass across town to try and save his brother from that crow. 2 crows, 3 crows, counting crows. Come on, laugh. Turbo reaches them in just the nick of time to rescue Chet. But despite Turbo's heroics, Chet is still wary of the fact that they're all alone in the middle of Los Angeles with a great many hazards around them. And just as Turbo assures Chet that everything will be just fine, yeah, should have seen that coming. This big bundle of joy here is Tito Lopez, and he has 2 things in life that mean the world to him. His floundering taco business that he runs with his brother Angelo in a local strip mall, which is in a constant struggle to find new customers, and in his time off, presides over a local racing competition. He turns up for the night with Chet and Turbo, and that's when we discover that it's a snail racing competition. Yeah, really. Seems like a joke, although once you get on the acid, it does start to make sense. For almost everyone, it was a joke, but for Turbo, this was an opportunity, I guess. Alas, he smokes him. Tito is elated, absolutely, but Angelo, he ain't convinced. Angelo is all about selling tacos, expanding the business, world domination, and all that good stuff. Tito, however, he's a dreamer, much like Turbo is. And like Turbo, he's got a brother who's still firmly planted in reality, and about as much fun as an instruction manual for a sex doll. But at least the other snails are somewhat encouraging. The leader of them bunch being Whiplash, who's voiced by the one and only Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, this may be a movie about a snail on speed that races in the Indy 500 against overly French non-French people, but Samuel L. still kills it in this role. I mean, does he never? Tito meanwhile starts using Turbo's speed to advertise Dos Bros tacos, although Angelo is somewhat skeptical, saying aloud,
"But how is that supposed to help us sell tacos?"
Ever heard of marketing, bro? No? Huh, probably part of the reason why you're being outbid by low-rent restaurants claiming to sell what they call Mexican food. But see, this lack of foot traffic, or any sort of traffic for the business, isn't just their problem. The other people in this small district are feeling the pinch too, and the Dos Bros Tacos oven was on the death rattle. Any money in reserve would be needed for a new one, and they need all the help they can get, even if it is the spiritual brother of Tito, who just so happens to be a f***ing snail. And eventually, this marketing talk leads Tito down the motor racing rabbit hole when Turbo directs his attention to the Indy 500. All 3 of Tito's brain cells work in tandem, helping him formulate his master plan of entering Turbo into the 500. And when he tells Angelo his plans, he looks back at him as though he's on angel dust. Again. I mean, let's look at this logically. Alright, a snail entering the Indy 500. In what world is that allowed?
Actually, I've been doing a lot of research, and there's nothing in the rules that says a snail can't enter the race.
I love this guy's optimism. And as we know nowadays, motor racing governing bodies going by the book, yeah, that's a sore subject. Of course they're gonna let a snail enter, cause why wouldn't they? But for however much optimism is harbored by Tito and Turbo, the reality was they needed $20,000 for the entrance fee into the 500, which, you know, $20,000 to race in the Indy 500? It's the bargain of the century. Needless to say, however, they didn't really have that kind of money, nor did anyone else in that strip mall. Everyone was broke. They were cooked, and not in a good way, and it seemed that Chet was right.
Oh, we're going to Indianapolis, Chet. Don't you worry your chubby little face about that.
In the most elaborate ploy ever, they finally managed to draw attention to Turbo and to the Starlight Plaza. There is clear marketing potential with Turbo, and it had a good effect on the business. Tito tries again to pitch the Indy deal to Angelo, but again, he's reluctant to play ball. And when he asks if the money reserved for a new oven could be used to cover the entrance fee, Angelo tells him to get lost. Big surprise. So in that moment, Tito does about the only thing a man can do in that moment. He stole from his brother, and they all headed to Indy in search of victory at the Brickyard. And for an animated film primarily marketed towards kids, this rendition of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway is... yeah, they actually did a real good job here, not gonna lie. On the day of qualifying, Gagne takes the pole with a 4-lap average of 230 miles an hour, his best time yet. Weak. But Turbo and team are still there to compete. Obviously, as you could imagine, it's met with ridicule.
Is that a snail?
A snail entering the 500? Get out of here. Although the tables be turned when Turbo floors it and zooms around the track, totally unsolicited and all by his onesies. And in the end, jubilation, as he posts an average speed that's fast enough to put him in the 500. I mean, really, what else did we expect to happen? To go around, not qualify, bum out, and roll credits? Nah, maybe in Alonso's IndyCar movie, but not this one. Footage of Turbo's qualifying attempts spread all over the globe. He's now world famous, and additional attention is thrust upon the Indy 500 heading into the weekend, as if that race needed any more publicity. Despite this, the powers that be decide they can't possibly allow a snail to enter the race. It just goes against tradition. We can't be having any of this. It seems that despite trying so hard and having gotten so far, in the end, it didn't even matter until Monsieur Gagne comes to the rescue and eventually convinces them to allow Turbo to race.
In the words of my dear father, no dream is too big, and no dreamer too small. And that is why I, for one, believe that if the Indy 500 isn't going to put a limit on speed, then it shouldn't put a limit on spirit!
Damn, that man had the crowd in the palm of his hand. Cliched as it gets, but as Guy maintains, the world needs them underdogs.
The world loves the underdogs, you know. The dreamers out there. They need them. Need to believe that one day, maybe they could achieve the impossible too. Espresso?
Ah yes, because espresso is a part of who we are. Gives us a chance to act snooty.
Well, the sad truth is, underdogs seldom win. And dreamers? Let's just say eventually they have to wake up. Because of you, the whole world will be watching this race. And when the checker flag drops, they'll be watching me win.
Oh, so this is when we get our main bad guy. Alright, I'm with you. I suppose every film does need an antagonist, but it is a little undercooked, which I wouldn't expect from something that's French. Well, French-Canadian. Okay, maybe that does make sense. Come race day, Turbo's dreams would finally come true, and the whole ordeal goes sort of like you would expect. A shaky start where he's almost squashed multiple times and desperately trying to avoid rubber flying off the tires. He's skittish, seems to be a bit of a hazard magnet. He falls down the order and things look dismal. But hey, it's a movie. You gotta have the main protagonist fall down before he can get back up again, you know? He just needs some motivation. He needs someone to pick him off the ground and tell him to his face exactly what he needs to do.
Are you a car?
No?
Are you a car?
No!
Then stop driving like one!
Yes. That. Turbo is starting to pass underneath cars, which isn't totally uncommon at Indianapolis. He begins to climb back up through the field, and before you know it, he's up there with Gagne. Hell, even Chet is getting in on all of this. Guy, though, while a 5-time champion, wasn't too keen on the idea of being beaten by a snail, for he is a dreamer. And dreamers need to wake up. He forces Turbo onto the marbles, which subsequently throws him into the wall. It damages his shell, which starts to mess with his, boost? Superpowers? Whatever you call it. And as the race restarts, and with Gagne up front, it seems to be a mere formality at this point. No. Boy here wasn't gonna let a scratch or two get in the way of victory. He catches up to and ducks underneath Gagne before his boost dies down. He falls down again, with the power cutting out intermittently. He summons the will though to drag himself back into contention. Up there with Gagne, they battle wheel to shell before we get a snuff movie. Or at least it seemed that way. Turbo took the lead with 1 lap to go. As long as he doesn't JR Hildebrand himself going into the final corner, he should be home free. But Gagne, while he may not have heard of Hildebrand, he certainly became him in that moment, drifting onto the marbles in a vain attempt to take the lead. He causes the wreck of all wrecks, taking out half the field and blocking out the others. Included in the wreck is Turbo, whose cosmic shell is knocked off by Gagne, robbing him of his boost. Although, seeing as how he had that power before the special shell was made for him, I don't know why this alone robbed him of the power. Oh, okay, that explains a bit. So close, yet so far. Ugh, this is depressing. In that moment, what one needs is words of encouragement. And he got it from Chet no less. And it works on Turbo. He has to finish the race. Oh, this asshole again. Unlike Ricky Bobby and Jean Girard, Mr. Gagne knows the rules. He needs his car to actually win the race, but it's pretty cooked. It ain't going nowhere. So, may as well concede defeat for once in your life. Whoa, this dude is serious. Is he alright? It's close, and Gagne attempts to crush him in a vain attempt to take victory by any means necessary. But then Turbo remembered to tuck and roll. Let's go. It's great seeing them brothers bond like that. After all the skepticism and harsh words, not believing in their belief in their dreams, they went out and did it. Proved everyone wrong, and they couldn't be more proud of them. I say them because back home at the taco stand, Angelo is equally proud of Tito. For once, one of his crazy schemes actually worked. And how? Because when they got back from Indy, Angelo's old ass oven, which Mega-chromed on him, is replaced by a nice spick-span one that's bordering on what would happen if Knight Rider never left the kitchen. In fact, the whole plaza is experiencing a revival in business, thanks in no small part to Turbo's Indy win. Proof that sponsorship in motorsport does actually work. Sometimes, but more so than that, it proves that sometimes you do need to stick to your guns. That if you truly believe in something and you know full well that you are capable of pulling it off, ignore the naysayers and chase your dreams, because it's all gonna work out in the end. So yeah, this movie was a trip. Not as iconic, if you can call it that, as the Cars franchise, but for what it's worth, it's an alright flick. It's respectful enough to the sport, I guess, and doesn't really try and dumb it down a whole lot, despite the damn thing being geared toward kids. Is the plot a little hollow? Perhaps. And is the antagonist not that well developed and kinda hard to hate? Yeah, maybe. Yeah, this film definitely ain't perfect. But if you're looking for something to kill 90 minutes with, and you want a plot centered around an Indy 500 winning Snail, this is the perfect film for you. Sweet. There's your Turbo video. Hope you liked it. Anyways, don't be a manus, and I'll see you all later.
Living on the far side of town.